Hello everyone, Sebastian Lucido here, and I'm doing a combined What I Really Think, which is our private, uncensored blog, and Headline and Prophecy, which is our censored blog. I'm going to try and get it through. So these are combined with a year-end message and a beginning of year message. And so I thought we'd try this out anyway to see where we're going. I have a scripture in Luke chapter 19, verse 41. It says, "And as he drew near, he saw the city and wept over it." So Jesus is walking toward Jerusalem, and he wept over the city, saying, "If you had known," so this is why he's weeping. He's saying, "If you had known, even you, especially in this your day, the things that would make for your peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. For the days will come upon you, and your enemies will build an embankment around you, surround you, and close you in on every side, level you and your children within you to the ground, and they will not leave one stone upon another, because you did not know the time of your visitation." Then he went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold, saying to them, "It is written, my Father's house is a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of thieves." And then he began to teach daily in the temple. So Jesus and there's a great parallel here between our time and their time. He said, if you had known the time you're in, if you had known what was going on in the earth, that the first coming of Jesus was at that time, and you would have submitted to him, and you would have seen him and believed him. Now he's talking to old covenant people. He's not talking to the world. He's talking to those that go to temple and synagogue to learn about his coming and to learn about their God. So, they're completely clueless, and he's weeping over it. He's saying, guys, the prophets talked about this. They showed it to you. I have showed you God. I have revealed God to you. I've showed you love. I've showed you the things of God, and you've rejected me because you didn't realize the time we're in. You didn't realize the peace that you could have had. You didn't realize the salvation that would have been yours. And this regret in Jesus caused him to weep, because these were people that he came and he was going to die for, to help them get to heaven, to help them get through. And then he goes on and he says, he's speaking specifically to Jews. He said, that they're going to come and they're going to completely destroy you. And they did. The Romans came in 70 AD and completely destroyed Jerusalem and dispersed. It's called the Great Dispersion. They crucified two to a cross on all of the roads leading into Jerusalem, all the leadership, and then dispersed the Jews throughout, and Christians throughout the Roman world. They just destroyed Jerusalem. They didn't want to put up with it anymore. So they took them, and they sent Christians and Jews to every nation on earth where Rome had control to be slaves. But what they did was they sowed seeds into those nations by bringing believers into those nations. And so what was bad and ultimately was destruction ended up turning out for the furtherment of the gospel. So why do I say, there's a parallel? Because I believe that because the church has left what I believe to be sound doctrine. And I'm not condemning all churches. What I'm doing is I'm saying that we have not taught sound doctrine over the last probably 50 or 60 years in most churches. Most churches have allowed societal pressures to come into the sanctuary, have allowed the man's desire for comfort and material things to come into teachings in the sanctuary, to a point where we've blurred what the word says and who we are and who we're to be. I mean, Jesus is very clear that we're not to love the world or the things of the world, that we're to deny ourselves, pick up our cross, and follow him. So I want to go over what's going on, because here's looking back at 2021 and looking forward. There's a huge change in 2021 in our nation. It started decades before, but it's brought change. And this change is moving us away from God and moving us into the hands of Antichrist. So, when you look at what happened in 2021, through fear and hate and selfishness, it really starts at the top. We're beginning to see division in our nation like we've never seen since the Civil War. We've seen, mask or no mask, right? People punching each other on planes because of mask mandates. Vax or no vax. I don't care where you are on whether vaccination or the shot is good or bad. People are divided on this and hateful. Black and white. Free enterprise versus socialism. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, progressives, conservatives. But these divisions are there because it's being driven into us because of this change of ideology that's going on in our nation. Christians don't hate. Christians don't fear. Christians aren't selfish. Christians aren't divided. Christians unify, right? Mask or no mask, we're supposed to love both. Vax or no vax, we're supposed to love both. Black or white, we don't see color. Free enterprise socialism, we are supposed to love as Jesus loved. But here's the problem. The leadership of our nation needs fear, hate, selfishness to cause division, to have things unsettled, because when you're in a settled, well-functioning economy and society where there's not a lot of division, we see that there's full employment, people are working, people are happy, crime goes down, and so we as a nation thrive. We were built on this. We were built on, free enterprise system, capitalism, freedoms, right? But underneath that, which was the foundation of it, is we were built on Christianity. So we as individuals wanted to obey God, which caused us to want to obey our government, right? Because our Constitution, a lot of it, and a lot of the laws of the land are formulated because of Judeo-Christian values. And so here's what this new ideology is in our nation. This forced ideology for more control by government, which takes away freedoms from individuals, more of a socialism or even communistic thinking process to bring what they call social equity, to bring the bottom up and the top down and to compress. It's never worked on the face of the earth. But the status quo or prosperity is their enemy. They can't have abundant prosperity and people that are prospering as individuals. They want the government to control things. And so they're doing it under the guise of the Green New Deal. But here's what they do. They purposely have raised energy prices. Well, you say, why? Well, they closed the pipeline. They got rid of energy leases. They stopped new drilling leases and caused energy supplies to plummet, which caused energy pricing to go up, which forces us to go offshore to get energy from other countries like we did. And so energy prices go up. Well, why did they do that? And their answer is because of the environment, and they want to move to electronic vehicles, battery-run vehicles. So while they're doing that, and even that ideology could have been scaled in, it was the first thing that Joe Biden did when he came to office was shut down the pipeline. At the same time, he opened up Russia's pipeline, which we'll get to. Purposely opening the borders, sticking their head in the sand, letting millions of immigrants come into our nation, and planting them throughout the country strategically, allowing, they're telling us to wear a mask and get vaccinated or get the shot, and they're letting these people in all over the country. without any rhyme or reason to it, dropping them on our doorstep. But they're purposely doing it. It's not hidden. They can say, well, the borders are closed. No, they're allowing, enhancing, and perpetuating. Now, they're being overrun by it. Now they're worried in some cases because of what they've done. They broke policing authority around the country. I mean, we've seen police officers go from a place of respect and honor and a righteous fear to being an enemy of the state. And they're not. I mean, until they need a police officer and they call, it's easy to sit in your ivory tower and cause this to happen. And again, this is breaking on them. You see, their agenda is moving so fast that there's stress cracks in it. But they're purposely causing. Look at raiding stores. Where have you ever seen this in the United States of America? They're appeasing and blessing and enhancing our enemies. They're talking with Iran. You can't talk to terrorists. You can't talk to a Russian regime. They only respect fear. There has to be an element of fear. And so by opening the pipeline to Russia, allowing their economy to expand again, they're looking at going into Ukraine. They're looking at going into the Baltics and some of the other Russian, old Soviet states, and we're fueling them. Well, what happened to the environment there? Our companies were exporting liquid natural gas to Europe. Now they're getting their gas from Russia. But appeasing an enemy like we can trust Iran. Can you trust Iran? Would you trust Iran? They're forcing economic control back to the government. By giving free money, by giving free services, you become dependent upon the government. Well, it takes money to pay for all of that. So they continue to move by executive action and order. The Build Back Better plan, Manchin, and Sinema got in the way. I believe there's going to be a hybrid of it, or a couple of hybrids of it, but I believe he's going to start using executive authority to do this in 2022. But what does this do? We were built on free enterprise. For your labor, you would get paid a fair wage. If the government's giving you money, why would you want to work? What incentive is there to work? The reprogramming a generation of kids, they've already done it. Anybody probably 40 years and down has this new ideology that they've been touched with in one way or another. It's come to light because we went into Zoom meetings, remote learning for kids. Parents began to see this programming, this social equity, this alternative sexual orientation, all of the things that this agenda has behind it. They're taking away the past and our history to see what it took to get our nation to this place. They're eliminating what made us great, which was the ingenuity of our founding fathers and leaders in our nation. They're very liberal in their thinking. They came in and they broke Afghanistan. They allowed looting. They lie right to the public. The public doesn't pick up on it because the media is complicit with it. They want to keep control. So what does this all have to do with the scriptures I read? Well, here's the thing. On the earth, since you go back to the time of Jesus, at about probably 300 AD, there has always been a client nation, a nation that was predominantly Christian, that was a powerhouse, that was the equalizer on earth. It was Rome during the time when the Vatican took control. And then we see France, we see Portugal, we see Spain, we see primarily England, and then we became, after World War II, really before that, God's client nation. Meaning that we spread Christianity, we had godly people in our nation, we fed, clothed, sheltered, and through Christianity, setting up missions throughout the world. Well, what's happening is our nation, which is God's client nation, is now moving toward this ideology at record speeds. And what's happening? The church is diminishing in numbers because of the pandemic, because of technology. Less people are attending actual fellowship, and more are attending online. Which I believe you can learn either way, but we're called to assemble ourselves together. Hebrews tells us that. Where where the doctrine is continually not adversarial to the agenda because of censorship and other tax and financial issues, as well as man-pleasing. And so we're not teaching the people what's going on to teach them right from wrong. They need to understand, and I used in a prior teaching about the Pope. I'm very critical of him. He's had a microphone twice, a megaphone. Once when he came to the U.S., and twice when Biden and Nancy Pelosi went to visit him, two Catholics. In both cases, he wanted to talk about their agenda, the environment, the Green New Deal, rather than talking what American Catholics want, which is to stop abortion, to stop alternative sexual orientation, to teach kids Christianity in school. And so we see this moving of the world toward this ideology. And when we're seeing unity and community, we're seeing Christians fight over, labeled Christians, fighting over vaccination, no vaccination, mask or no mask, white, black, free enterprise socialism. We're seeing the love of many wax cold, as Matthew 24 would say. And so why? Because you're taking a social thinking, a political strategy, an ideology that brings fear, and you're using that fear that's moving you to move against a brother or sister. That's why in Matthew 24 he said, many will betray one another, hate one another, and so what is the hatred? What is the betrayal? He's talking about believers being offended. And what are they offended at? Vax or no vax, mask or no mask, black and white, free enterprise, right? Liberal, conservative, all of this ideology. Here's the thing. We don't put those things above our love. I think masking and vaccinations are a personal freedom that are afforded us by the Constitution. This isn't Ebola. Okay, so I believe that, by forcing this, they're realizing now that 20 to 30% of the country doesn't want to get vaccinated. I don't care where you stand. We don't hate somebody for not doing that. I mean, you just don't do that. That's what's going to happen when the mark of the beast comes. There'll be us and them. And that's a problem. And so the other thing is, by not teaching our people right and wrong and understanding and bringing social issues into the sanctuary, because we have freedoms in our nation to be able to vote leaders in that would not bring us down this path, and to put other leaders in, we're falling into this place. I believe that in 2022, probably towards spring, summer, we're going to see Russia either move on Ukraine, the Baltics, Belarus, in a big way to take them over and consume them, or our leaders are going to pay extortionary prices to have them not do that. But I believe they're going to do it. Remember, they did it. They took the Crimea, and Obama did nothing. Obama drew 3 red lines in the sand about Assad attacking his own people in Syria. He gassed them. He used chemical weapons against the people that were against him. He killed them. We've seen the pictures of kids and children and teens and women and men dead in the streets, and Obama did nothing. And then he killed bin Laden. Everybody cheers him. He did nothing. Joe Biden took us out of Afghanistan. There are Christians being killed in Afghanistan. If you are a female of any age in Afghanistan, you went back 4 centuries, all because of one man and his stupidity and wanting to end something without listening to his generals were against it. Under Trump, 2,500 troops, which is nothing to our 4 million man military, 2,500 troops in Bagram Air Force Base, and kept for 18 months of the Trump administration. Not one American was killed. Women were living in freedom. The church was there, was thriving, and that all ended. And they're allowing looting. They're turning their eyes to it. They're lying to the public. And so here, we're going to see China go into Ukraine. We're going to see China go into Taiwan, Russia go into Ukraine, and possibly the Baltic states and Belarus. Iran and Turkey are going to do something against Israel, or Israel's going to have to do something against Iran and Turkey. There is a war, a prophetic war, called the Ezekiel 38 war, which has Russia, Iran, Turkey, Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and Northern Africa, all come against Israel, and 5/6 of their population, the invading population, is killed. We do participate with Israel in that war. There's language that makes it diplomatic first and then a war. So I see some sort of major conflict between China and Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine, and some of the other Soviet states. We may see all of them come against Israel. I do think that may happen in 24 if I had to lay it out. We're going to see inflation continue, supply chains issues continue. They were just waiting to throw more mandates and more COVID issues on us, and now they're seeing that this variant is much less aggressive. They're going to drive more division, and so we're seeing our nation actually split into two. The trouble that I'm seeing is there's more labeled Christians moving away from God, compromising intolerance, and living very similar to the Pope for this, this Green New Deal. What is happening? What does all of this mean? All of this means that the world is moving into position for Antichrist to come on the scene. I've been studying this for 40 years. I've been teaching it for 30. Okay? We were the holdout. Europe is already socialized. Europe is already atheistic in nature. Europe is already, moved away from free enterprise in a lot of areas, and is continuing to do so. The church attendance in Europe is probably 1/10 of what it is here, still with us diminishing. We were the last holdout. We are buying into this, and there's stress cracks. I mean, clearly parents are upset. Clearly, if they got Cinema and Manchin to vote for the Build Back Better plan, we would move straight into socialism. I do believe they're going to get bought, or they're going to fractionalize it into separate, more bite-sized pieces next year. I do think we're going to become more atheistic next year. There's going to be more censorship next year. I believe there's going to be suspension next year. And here's the thing. What's the goal? The goal is control by the government, socialism, and atheism. And, under that canopy comes, excessive environmental policies. I mean, we are what, 5% of the earth, if that, 3% of the earth, whatever it is. There's 7 to 8 billion people. We're 350 million people tops. We're stopping a pipeline in the center of our country is supposed to help the earth when you've got 1 billion people in India and 2 billion people in China that are spewing pollution into the earth. It's nonsense, people. It's nonsense. I am going to be very direct in my teaching next year. I believe we need to really understand what salvation is. We can't write that. We don't have the right to decide who's saved, who's not saved, and what we think God is. Only His Word can do that. I'm going to teach some of these subjects more and more to get people to understand that haven't been around Bible prophecy, why it's, now, to try and understand that, to try and get their arms around it. And I'm going to teach more and more about the judgment of God, trying to understand it. So what I'm asking for is really, that we grow in two ways, and you grow in both ways. One is share the message, listen to the message, and share the message. We need people. You can't change your thinking without a revelation. The Bible says that how can they have faith if they don't have somebody to teach them? Share our messages this year. Make it a point to like them, which helps us in search capabilities, but also share the message. Share it with targeted people or with your database. Give. Become a partner. If we're speaking into your life, you should help us with our ministry. And as I look to next year, we have very aggressive plans. We have a book. We have 4 curriculums that are built in the studio. One was built in a home. We're talking to television programs, talk shows, Christian talk shows, about me being a guest speaker on it, and we're having good success in our dialogue with them. Also radio interviews, and then influencers on both blogs and social media. And we need a website that can handle. Our website was built to accommodate social media. We need a website that accommodates itself, that is an engine unto itself, so that if we're censored, we have the website. And so we need just for that alone, we need somewhere around $25,000. So we need partners, we need staff. So I'm asking you to make a year-end donation or a beginning of year donation, and to become a monthly partner with us. Also, I believe that as we look forward into next year, I think there's going to be more chaos in our nation. We may even have riots and more terrorist attacks in our nation next year because of this divide. And I think there's other things that I don't want to go over today with you, but I did have 3 or 4 words from the Lord in different areas. One of them was martial law and a curfew in our nation. And that can come either from fighting within ourselves, or it can come through external pressures, terrorism. They're catching terrorists weekly coming in through the southern border. Again, it's just not, it's purposeful on their part. It's crazy. So anyway, that's Headline and Prophecy for next week, and what I really think for this Friday. I really pray that 2022, God encounters you in a very special way. I pray that you have I call it a reset. When God breaks into your life and either speaks to you, shows you a sign, gives you a sign, or answers a miracle prayer. These are resets. What they do is they reset our thinking. And my prayer for you is that God would encounter you in such a special way that it would reset your thinking going into 2022. And I pray it happens to you today in this week as we transition into 2022. God's still on the throne. We're supposed to be fruitful in all of this. I'll tell you a good message. If you want to just listen to one of my messages, you're not a listener, listen to Line Upon Line, which is coming out on Thursday, the first week of January. It's on the first 4 trumpets. You'll get a good understanding of my blog today, both Headline and Prophecy and what I really think. You'll get a good understanding because I touch a lot of the subjects we touched on today through some of the judgments of God that are coming on the earth. So with that, God bless you. Happy New Year, and may God, in the name of Jesus, encounter you in a very special way, you and your family, to bring you peace, blessings, and prosperity in this upcoming year so that we're not affected by what's going on out there. We maintain our peace. God grows our wealth and grows us so that we can continue to preach and teach the Word of God. God bless you, and I'll see you next either Friday or Monday for what I really think in Headline and Prophecy. God bless you.